Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the 23rd edition of the Halloween movie review series, and I'm going to be giving you guys my review of Ghostbusters from 2016. This was pretty much the reboot film. This was pretty much a remake of the first film. Now, I've talked about this somewhat before, and I haven't talked about it enough. I don't hate remakes, I just don't like the concept of remakes. I'm just kind of feel that way. I feel like remakes are just kind of a way for a company to make money again, and so they just remake it. They just come off as such money grabs to me that people just remake films just for the sake of making money. Sometimes that isn't the case, but I also don't like remakes because they're never better than the original, and sometimes they're either an epic failure or they just can't live up to the original movie. And like I said, also they just come off as money grabs to me. Remakes, but I still will judge films as its own entity and stuff, and as a film. But to me, just remakes, I'm just not. I've never been a fan of remakes. Especially when I've seen remakes like Halloween remake, especially Halloween 2, which is at the moment my least favorite movie of all time. I hate that movie so much. You know, you've had remakes with Beauty and the Beast, which was a great film, but it didn't need to be remade. Same thing with The Jungle Book. Same thing that's gonna probably happen with The Lion King. I hear they want to do a remake of that. Um, I just don't really care for the concept of making remakes. I just feel like that. Um, just you could come up. You should either make a sequel or just realize that you've made your money and your films was great before, and continue to either sell the movies again, sell merchandise for it, do something else. Now, in this case, obviously there were other factors at play. Um, obviously after the success of Ghostbusters 2, um, the writers, the writers wanted to make a third Ghostbusters, but Bill Murray was on the fence about it because of kind of how lackluster the second film was, which I kind of agree with him. I don't think it was like lackluster, but I kind of agree with him. So he wanted to wait for the right script. They had tried various amounts of scripts. They were going to have scripts where Peter Venkman turned into a ghost. They had script where Peter Venkman, left Dana Barrett. They had a ton of scripts. And yeah, obviously they never were able to go through. They eventually just made a video game in 2009 with Ghostbusters that was pretty successful. And then they tried making the movie again, and again, but it didn't really work out too well. They tried to replace Bill Murray with Ben Stiller, but they weren't. But the but the writers weren't going for that either. Um, Obviously too, you had the cast members going on to do other projects. Eventually, though, in July of 2012, they decided to pretty much scrap any writing. They decided to scrap the movie for it. They decided to scrap the idea of making a third film, so they were just going to make a remake, and they were just going to reboot the film. Um, and Obviously, because of Harold Rams's death in 2014, Redman decided to leave the director role in March of 2014 because they had started filming it in 2013. Um, but he still was a producer to help Columbia and Sony find a new director for the film. At this point, the script featured the original Ghostbusters in minor roles. So I guess they were supposed to have bigger roles, but it didn't really go that way. And when it came down to pre-production, um, um, Paul Feig had been selected as director, and the reboot would feature an all-female cast. It was announced that he was going to be Uh, you know, it was announced he was involved in October of 2014, along with co-writer Katie Diploid, and confirmed his intention to have the film star Hilarious Woman, which is in quotes. And, then they did the casting. They filmed this movie. They started filming this on June 17th, 2015 in Boston, actually. And on June 29th, 2015, the costumes were tweeted out. And they just kind of went into the filming role. They had a lot of effects in this movie. 6 companies dealt with 100,700 visual effects shots under the supervision of Pete Travers. The main studio was Sony Pictures Imageworks with 300 shots, but that included the climatic Times Square sequence and all the photon beams. Moving Picture Company, or MPC for short, did 250 shots, and it continued in that status. And yeah, pretty much that's kind of how it was. And I kind of went into the backstory of the movie, and it kind of sucked that we never got a sequel to the second movie. My opinion, did Ghostbusters really need to go more than one film? Probably not. I think that one film was just such a classic. They didn't really need to make any more. The second one was kind of made because of the success of the first film. Kind of how it was. The 2016 version didn't need to be made at all. So, this movie was directed, I already said who directed it. It was produced by Ivan Whitman and Amy Pascal, and it was written by Katie Diploid and Paul Feig. And it was obviously based on Dane Aykroyd and Harold Ramis's film. It was their brainchild, and Ivan Whitman as well. The music was done by Theodore Shapiro. The cinematography was done by Robert Yeoman. It was edited by Brent White and Melissa Bretherton. It was distributed. The companies that produced this movie were Columbia Pictures, Village Roadshow Pictures, the Montiso Picture Company, Feig Show Entertainment, Paschal Pictures, and Ghost Corps, and it was distributed by Sony Pictures. It was released in TC. It has 2 release dates actually. It was released in TCL Chinese theaters on July 9th, 2016, and then in the United States on July 15th, 2016. This movie has a $144 million budget, so a lot of money went into this movie. So yeah, I've talked about that. Let's get to the movie itself now. So, it's a remake. It's 2 hours long. That's why it took me so long to get this video up. I did not expect this movie. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long. It's a long movie. Quite frankly, I don't really think Ghostbusters really needs to be a long movie. That's kind of like what I hate about certain movies when they remake them. Halloween, the franchise, I remember that was like, both of them each were 2 hours long. And I look at it like this. I actually think it's okay sometimes to do 2 hours long for movies. This case, this movie did not need to be 2 hours. This movie had, especially with like the amount of filler scenes that were in this movie only probably needed to be an hour and 45 minutes tops. It didn't need to be 2 hours. Ghostbusters, the original, it was simple. They were able to do a lot with the amount of time that they had. This didn't need 2 hours, 15 minutes, and something seconds. It didn't need that long. It didn't need to go that long, and it went that long. It was pretty stupid, actually. But I will say this. I enjoyed the movie. I didn't think the movie was great. I thought it was a decent movie. I actually thought this movie was better than the second one. It's not better than the original, though. The original is a classic. But let me start talking about it. So, we meet this. I'm not going to go into point by point what happened because the movie's 2 hours long. There's a lot of filler scenes in it, and I think that's kind of what hurts my enjoyment of this movie. Was there was a lot of filler scenes in this movie. There was a lot of scene, and it took a while for them to tell the story they needed to tell. It took a long time. I get you want to build to movies, but this having all these filler scenes in there just didn't need to be. That didn't need to be there. Just was unnecessary. Um. So it starts off with a college professor, Dr. Erin Gilbert, and yeah, she's a college professor. That's actually not where it starts off. Actually, it starts off at a tour guide. Um, I have to remember his name. Where is it? I know it's here somewhere. Okay, so it opens up. Sorry about that. I just couldn't find his name. With Zach Woods, and he's given a tour at a hotel, and we find out that the room is haunted. There was this ghost that got locked up in a room because she like murdered her entire family because she was crazy, and um, one of the candles falls over. This creeps him out. So after his night shift is over, he gets haunted by ghosts, and he runs into that room he's not supposed to go in. And of course, he's an idiot, so he tries to get out. We don't see anything. They play the Ghostbusters theme song. We meet Dr. Erin Gilbert, who we find out is a professor at a college. She's like a top professor, um, and somebody who's bought in her book. I forget his name, but somebody um, had bought in her book on paranormal activity, and Erin had written this book, but she had written a long time ago when she had disowned the book, but she had burned the only 2 copies, but we find out Abby had put in the copy online on Amazon, so she gets worried because she's a teacher at Columbia University, and she's supposed to get evaluated, and pretty much the college doesn't accept any paranormal BS. So she goes to Abby to try to have this book taken down. And Dr. Holtz, we find out works with Abby, and Abby and Dr. Holtz play a ton of childish jokes on Aaron, and then they go to this abandoned like a haunted house that the ghost is taking place in. They actually did this funny joke where the tour guide came in and they revealed that he soiled himself, and that the guy that came to talk to Aaron earlier wasn't actually alive. It was just he had died 15 years ago. And then they did the funny joke by saying that he was just Junior. Um, then they go into the house. Aaron steps into this green ectoplasmic slime, and then the ghost pops up out of the door, and Aaron goes to talk to it. The ghost gets ectoplasmic slime all over her, and they went away. And she is so happy that she saw a ghost, and everybody thinks that they're crazy. So she gets fired as a professor because she's an embarrassment to that establishment. So they try to go into business for themselves, but the school that was funding Abby's science program didn't even know that she was a science teacher, so they got cut too. And they made like a ton of jokes about how the guy didn't know how to spell science. He spelled it with a Y, and it was supposed to be funny, but wasn't funny. Um, and yeah, so then they pretty much decided to become Ghostbusters. They re- um, they redo the scene where the original one, where the original Ghostbusters went to buy the firehouse. This time they don't buy it though, because it was worth too much money. So they instead stay on top, in the above like a Chinese restaurant, um, which was kind of some bad scenes. There was like some scene they kept going back again and again where this um, server um, um, Karen Benny, no, the server Benny keeps giving Liminal soup, and they don't give her he doesn't give Annie the right Abby the right soup. It was a bad joke. I think one of the problems I had with this movie was I had a lot of bad jokes in this movie. I had a lot of them. And it also had like some jokes that were funny, but then they over-explained the joke, so that it made it not funny. I hate those type of jokes. In one of the scenes, they did a reference to Patrick Swayze, and it was funny, but because they kept making references to like every single one of his movies, it made it not funny. So I hated that. Um, and that's something I would have changed about this movie. I think that's what made this movie so long. Is that reason, you know. So the whole first half of the movie, pretty much they're trying to prove to everybody that they're not crazy, that they're not ghosts, that they actually do see ghosts. Um, Ellen had a boyfriend who was completely like dumped her and was embarrassed by her. He actually didn't even stick up for her when she got fired. So then um, then we meet the new person, Patty, or Patricia Tolan, is her full name. Originally, she worked at like the desk, and where she would sell people the tickets for. She was a MTA worker who has an extensive knowledge of New York. And earlier, we had Rowan. He was a guy that everybody had made fun of. For believing in ghosts, so he wanted to extract his revenge and pretty much cause the end of the world. He had these machines that sent out ecto that sent out ghost energy and would send ghosts out. So he sends one out in the subway, and she goes to tell the Ghostbusters about it, and they try to catch a ghost, but they fail because a train comes and hits the ghost and causes it to go right through. So then eventually Patty joins up with them. They even have this assistant, Kevin, who is an idiot. He doesn't know how to do the job at all. And that was a terrible character, a terrible idea. It was not, yeah, it was just not the same. Because pretty much the case, I think this was the case anyways. I think Abby was pretty much supposed to be the Egon of the group. Um, Holtz was supposed to be the Ray of the group. Um, Patty was supposed to be the Hudson of the group, or I forget his name in the Ghostbusters films, but um, he was supposed to be um, I just want to look up his name real quick. She was supposed to be the Winston of the group because she was black. That's pretty much exactly. And then obviously Aaron was supposed to be the Peter Venkman of the group, even though she wasn't the Peter Venkman of the group. She doesn't even come any close to sniffing Peter Venkman's role. So eventually they convince themselves that they're going to try to catch Ghost. We get a little bit into the history of the background between Aaron and Abby about how they became friends. We find out Aaron became interested in paranormal activity because she had a neighbor that ended up dying and would visit her room every night, so she was called Ghost Girl. And they even went through this presentation that they did. And eventually, they finally get a call about ghosts. We find out that Rowan had sent one out at a rock concert, so they try to catch this ghost. It was pretty much a recreation of the scene when the original Ghostbusters went to the hotel. It was pretty much the same scene, and eventually they catch the ghost. And it actually goes on Patty's shoulders, so they hold the ghost down and trap it. And it was supposed to be this big celebratory moment. When everybody had seen it, they originally thought it was part of the rock costume. So then Ozzy Osbourne sees it. It was like a metal rock type of costume, type of thing. He gets overfilled with joy, and then they're all happy they caught a ghost. And something I did love about this movie is they actually did bring in the original cast of the film in this movie, which I thought were utilized great. They had cameo appearances. Bill Murray played Dr. Martin Hees, and he pretty much didn't believe in paranormal activity, which was kind of funny to watch that because obviously of the events in the first Ghostbusters. So he doesn't believe they really caught a ghost. So Aaron releases it, and the ghost blows him through the window, kills him, which kind of sucked. Obviously then we see Janine. We see Janine, who plays Vessa. She was a desk clerk at the hotel, which was kind of funny because she utilized one of her major roles, like when she said they were at the hotel, "How can I help you?" You had Dan Aykroyd come back as a taxi driver. So I actually kind of like that they sporadically, they even had sent Egon Spinkler as a bronze head bust back. He was Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis they couldn't really use because he had been dead. Like I said, he had died in 2014. So I kind of liked how they kind of included the original cast in the movie. I thought that was actually done outstandingly. Later on, Aaron Hudson, we find out, was Patty's uncle, and he had owned a company. He had owned a funeral service company, and they had borrowed one of his cars, and they customized it and stuff. And I thought it was nice. I thought that was very, very well done, actually. I loved it, actually. But back to the actual film. So eventually, they were about to get arrested because Dr. Because of the death of Dr. Martin Healis, but then they get called in by the FBI. The mayor tells them that they believe him, but they should leave this to the professional government, and they pretty much have to pretend that they're frauds, and they're going to actually do the research, but the professionals are going to come in and work on this. So they agree to do this. It was pretty stupid. I thought this was a stupid plot that was brought into this movie that they pretty much couldn't they couldn't work on them themselves, and it was just dumb. Wasn't as dumb as when the original Ghostbusters got all these lawsuits after saving the fucking world, and they got lawsuit for pretty much no reason. So then, so pretty much, they going through the amount of gadgets that were in this movie. There was a Swiss Army knife. It was supposed to be a funny scene that Holtz, Dr. Holtz had given Dr. Gilbert a Swiss Army knife, like saying you can never go on without a Swiss Army knife. It was kind of a bad moment, and they make this thing like that has a trap that you throw and it explodes, and there's a ton of cool gadgets. So eventually they catch Rowan. Rowan pretty much we found out had been using the same equipment because he had read the book, and use it for his own personal gain. So they threaten to call the cops and stuff, and then he electrocutes and kills himself. But when we actually find out that there was a bigger plan at play. Later on, Abby gets possessed by him. She starts destroying the Ghostbusters equipment, so everybody has to tackle her to the ground. Patty slaps Abby in the face, and instead, Rowan possesses Kevin. Dr. Gilbert tries to warn the whole town about what happened. What's about to happen, how he's going to end the world. Nobody believes him. Nobody believes her. Eventually they do. When it actually starts to happen, a ton of ghosts just pop up. Aaron was originally just going to back right out of this project, but because of the stuff at play, it didn't happen. The Ghostbusters do the best they can to fight him off. The original ghost that the original Ghostbusters caught the first time, the one that eats everything, steals their car, and they recreate the scene where they try to fight the Marshmallow Man, and they fight him as a balloon instead of actual Marshmallow Man. Abby pops it pops the balloon. Rowan controls the whole crowd by making them dance. It was a stupid scene. They freeze into place. They try to attack Rowan. He unpossesses himself from Kevin. He turns into the big Marshmallow Man, and they trap him into the paranormal activity. But then, as this happens, the Rowan was holding Abby, so she almost goes in there, and Erin tries to go in. Erin goes in to save her. She does. She said, "You did this because I wasn't going to leave you a second time." They come out. They have white hair, and it's this big triumphant moment. We found out Kevin went to get a sandwich as this all happened, which made no sense since the fucking place was being invaded and they were selling sandwiches. And then they all are American heroes, and the movie pretty much ends when they Ghostbusters continue, and they find out they have more cases, and they pretty much have to leave everything a secret. They get their actual new headquarters, and that's about it. This movie was decent, actually. I know I'm not really giving a shit talking about it, mainly because there really wasn't a lot to talk about. I'm not going to talk about that bullshit scenes because it was all BS. But this movie I actually thought was decent. I actually thought they did a pretty good job making this movie its old thing. I like the way that they utilized the other cast. Some of the stories were decent in this movie. I liked some of the characters. However, this movie also had a lot of bad moments, like they had scenes that dragged out. They had scenes that were filler that didn't belong in there. They had jokes that they over-explained that didn't need to be explained, which ruined the jokes. It took a while for this story to get going too. Like it was like getting to the point where where they took so long because you could slowly build to a story and it can work. But when you take too long to build to that story, then it doesn't work. And it took them a while to build to the story because they said there's so much filler in between that part of the build-up. Some of the acting I didn't think was all that great in this movie. I obviously didn't really care that they made Patty just a typical black woman who was sassy and stuff. And I didn't really care for the way that Abby was utilized somewhat. And I thought that Holtz was kind of a crazy character. They had a lot of flat characters. I think the cast here was not as good as the original cast. But I love the way they utilized the original cast. I liked just some things about this movie. This movie did not need to be 2 hours, though. And unfortunately, though, all this money that went into this movie, it kind of did a disappointing box office draw. It only had a 229.1 million box office draw. You know, since so much marketing and stuff had gone into this movie, it needed to gross out at least 300 million, and it didn't. It only did, you know, 229.1 million. So that's kind of disappointing. They were almost there though, and if this movie probably didn't have so much money going into it, it would have been a good box office draw. I also wanted to make sure to mention they actually, one thing I liked is when the trailers were coming out for this movie, it actually received like one of the most disliked trailers ever in a comedy movie. I think it was like the ninth most. From what I understand, I'm gonna read that part. It was the ninth most disliked video on YouTube with 280,000 likes to over 1 million dislikes. But they actually kind of referenced that in the movie when every time they would upload a video, they were called frauds and stuff. And I thought that was actually clever. But yeah, this movie, it's not the original. Like I said, it's a remake, so it obviously kind of goes down a notch automatically because remakes are just money grabs to me. You didn't need, in this case, they had no choice but to remake a remake. What the Ghostbusters writing team just should have done was they should have just realized that that third one wasn't going to get made and just abandoned this project altogether. Because this remake was not better than the first remake, than the original film. That original film was a classic, and that's kind of how I feel about the whole series. It really should have just been one film. That film was just such a classic. It didn't need a second film. It didn't need a remake. My opinion. But that's pretty much it, guys. I don't really have anything left to say. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. And you know what? I'm not going to do any more plugs because I'm about to make another video. But I didn't do my overall rating for this movie. If I had to rate this movie, I would rate this movie. It's a decent movie. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Ironically enough, I actually did enjoy this movie more than the second one, even though the cast in the second one was better than this one. But I enjoyed it. Let me go over the cast real quick, actually. That just reminds me. Melissa McCarthy played Dr. Abby Yates. Kristen Wiig played Dr. Aaron Gilbert. Kate McKinnon played Dr. Jillian Holtzman. Leslie Jones played Patricia Tolton, or Patty for short. Chris Hemsworth played Kevin Bateman, which I actually kind of think is funny that his last name was Bateman. I kind of thought that was going to be a reference. I actually think they would a reference on purpose. Neil Cassie played Rowan North. Andy Garcia played Mayor Bradley. Cecily Strong played Jennifer Lynch, who was the mayor's assistant. She was seen pretty roughly. Charles Dance played Harold Fillmore. He was the dean of Columbia University. Michael K. Williams played Agent Hawkins, and Matt Walsh played Agent Rourke. Ed Begley Jr. played Ed Mulgrave Jr. I don't remember who that was. Steve Higgins played Thomas Shanks, who was the dean of Kenneth P. Higgins Institute. This was the dean that fired Abby and Holtz off the campus. Michael McDolan played Jonathan, who was a theater manager. He was the manager that was called. Karan Soni played Benny, who was a soup deliverer. Who was a soup deliverer. Zach Woods played Garrett, who was the tour guide. Nate Cordy played Leaf, a graffiti artist. They go to explain what the ghost looked like, and he actually draws a picture of the old Ghostbusters logo. Leslie Nicole played Mrs. Potter as a guest in the Mercado Hotel. I don't remember who that was. Brian Baumgartner played Frank as another guest in the hotel. This was only if you watched the extended version, which I did. Toby Huss played Officer Stevenson. Katie Diploid played a rental agent. Jessica Chaffin played a waitress. Jamie Denbo played a waitress. Benj Rose played Gertrude's Aldridge ghost. This was the ghost that was locked in that room in the beginning of the movie I told you about. Dave Alien played an electrocuted ghost. I don't remember who that was. I guess it was a ghost in the train station. Steve Bonner played Flasher Ghost. Slimmer was voiced by Adam Ray. And Basement Cop was played by Sam Richardson. And as for cameos, Bill Murray played Martin Heath. Dan Aykroyd played Taxi Driver. Aaron Hudson played Bill Jenkins, who was Patty's funeral director's uncle. Sigourney Weaver played Dr. Rebecca Gorin, who was Hossman's mentor. And she was Dana Barrett in Ghostbusters, which was kind of funny that she had a role. Anna Potts played Vanessa, who was the desk clerk at the Moschino Hotel. Ivan Whitman was a passerby doing a broadcast interview with Mayor Bradley. Osborne played himself, listed as famous rock star. Al Roker played himself. Kierman played himself. Greg Kelly played himself. And Rosanna Scotto played herself. And Harold Ramis was Egon Springler, who was the bronze head bust. And then that's it. This movie received mixed reviews. Some people hated it. Some people liked it. I think I heard mainly positive. They thought it was just like me. They thought it was decent. They didn't think it was anything great. They liked that they made it its own thing, but it wasn't the original. So, it's about it. Pretty much. I don't really have anything left to say. Talk to you later.